Hi, Rick. How you doing?
Good morning, Keith. I'm great. How about yourself?
Doing great. Today's podcast, let's do one that's titled "When You Get Squeezed, What Comes Out." I've told this story a few times when I've given presentations. It's inspired by Wayne Dyer. Wayne Dyer is an incredible teacher. He died a few years ago. His legacy is one in which is just rooted in personal development, leadership development, and just really working towards self actualization, being conscious, being in the present moment, and just being filled with love and peace and being a contribution to others. And so he tells a story about his daughter. I think her name was Savannah. She gets into a altercation at school with another girl. She's sent home, and the teacher calls Wayne whilst Savannah's on her way home, and he tells her what happened. So Savannah gets home and he says, "Hey, there's something you want to tell me. What happened at school today?" It's like, I got in a fight." Like, okay, what happened? She's like, we both got in trouble, but it wasn't me. It was the other girl and things like that. Said, "Savannah, have you heard the story about the orange?" And she rolls her eyes and she's like, "Not another story." He's like, "Yes, it's another story." He said, when you squeeze an orange, what comes out of it?" She says, "Orange juice." He said, "Okay. You can't get pineapple juice out of it?" "No, you can't get pineapple juice out of it." "Grape juice?" "No, can't get grape juice out of it." "Apple juice?" "No, silly, you can't get apple juice out of it." "So what are you saying? That when I squeeze the orange, what comes out of it? You can only get orange juice." And then Wayne says to his daughter, "When people squeeze you, what comes out?" And she was like, I mean, a young girl got that aha moment. And that's what I started thinking. And Rick does the same thing about what we want our life to be, is that when life situations or people, we get squeezed, much of which is by the mind interpreting things. But when that happens, or the heart is hurt, but when that happens, what comes out of you? What I want to come out of me is love in every situation. I want to be unconditional. Now, to get there is easier said than done until it becomes just the norm. Then that's all that comes out. And so I have worked on this and I continue to work on it and I practice it. And that practice has made that the default setting for me. It's not 100%, but it's pretty close to 100%. But I've been working on this for a while. And there have been a couple of things that have happened just recently. Most recently, I'm working on this project at work and I'm working with a leader who I report up to. And my mind wants to say that whenever certain subjects come up, it's very difficult, and or that early on that I felt like I was being micromanaged. And I would feel my heart kind of closing. I would feel myself being squeezed. And it was my interpretation of what this person was doing. But I said, no, when that happens, I need to work on that. All I have for this manager is love, regardless of what they do. That's all that comes out of me is love. And I've been working and working on that. I was on the pickleball court last night. Surprise. No surprises there. And there was this guy who I played pickleball with a lot over the last year. And there have been a couple of instances in which he's told some jokes that other people, and Keith, when I say other people, I mean Keith 1.0, would have been offended by. I'm like, dude, we telling jokes about like this racial joke? Like, I'm a black person. How are you telling that joke? And I said to him, I was like, hey man, I don't know if you noticed, but I'm black. Like that could be offensive. And he's like, well, I didn't mean it like that. Well, anyway, I really worked on not closing my heart because and not confusing someone's behavior with their humanity. That doesn't mean like I'm gonna be allow abuse to take all to continue. He corrects himself, and then we're able to get back to smooth sailing. Well, I haven't seen him in a while over the summer. He's been playing indoor during the summer months. So I saw him last night. And when I saw him last night, he gives somebody a hug. And then I walk up to him like, Steve, what's up? To give him a hug. And I kind of get the shoulder. And I'm like, man, I'm orange juice right now. I'm giving love. I'm giving love. Shoulder, no shoulder. Keith is happy to see you. Keith, I don't want to see you. Whatever. It's not my path. My path is to be the orange. My path is to be loving and kind with an open heart, regardless of how other people show up. And what I find when I do that, I don't take on perceived slights. I don't take on that people are treating me disrespectfully. They might be, but that's their journey. What I'm going to do is I'm going to be on this path. And then lastly, I've been asked to give this talk at work, and it's regarding equity, inclusion, and diversity in the workplace. And Mayo Clinic is doing, I think, a really great job of working on this. And for some people, they're not working fast enough or forcefully enough about it. May or may not be true. My job is to show up every day and do my best and try to improve things if I can. So they're asking me to give this talk about taking care of yourself so you can take care of others. And it's a series called Belonging Matters. And I've been kind of hesitant to do this talk because my approach to all things is loving kindness. And I gave a talk 2 years ago to a similar group. And while the audience comments were that it was well received, the steering committee, the people who were organizing it, I learned that they were upset about the talk and they thought that I was being too forgiving for centuries of discrimination and everything else. I was like, what? You didn't listen to the talk because none of what I said was like that. What I said was work on yourself and get yourself together. Well, I didn't say you, but Keith, work on yourself in such a way that the thing that you want to affect in the world, you're actually living that. You're actually being that. You're being the orange. And so, well, anyway, I wasn't invited back. And that's cool too. And so they wanted me to give this talk for this series. And I'm thinking, like, should I do this talk? Should I not? I'm really not who they're looking for. I'm not the fit. And then, Brian and a couple of people encouraged me to do it anyway. They say, man, this is Keith. This is who you are, and of course, I won't preach to anybody about what they should do. But what I will say is, it's like, I'm going to tell the orange story likely. And I'm just be like, what other people do is their path. This is mine. And I'm committed to this. And it's not conditional. The very thing that I want to be, how I want to be treated, I'm treating other people that way, regardless of how they treat me. It doesn't matter. So, Rick, I said a lot, man. I apologize. I'm working on being that orange every day, Rick. Literally, I'm working on whenever life or people squeeze me, that love comes out, that kindness comes out.
It's easy to be on cloud nine, always going through life feeling loving when there's no squeezing, right? It's when the squeezing occurs that you really find out if you're walking the walk and talking the talk. And that's the hardest part of all. And I found that in this culture, maybe in all cultures, I don't know, it seems like we're very thin-skinned about respect. We can perceive all sorts of slights. We have all sorts of hot buttons when it comes to feeling like we're not being respected. And that's just exactly the opposite of the orange squeeze, getting the orange juice, which is a love or a sense of not caring about the opinion of another person. And I think the only way that we can get around that is to do self-examination about what the triggers are that disrespect, alleged disrespect, causes in us. We have to get past this notion. I'm speaking about myself now. I had to get past this notion that other people owed me something, and I was resentful if I didn't receive it, or I didn't receive it in the amount that I felt I deserved. And what I realized was that I was trying to control things that I have no way of controlling, which is another person's view of me. And the tragedy is that I look back in my life and I probably spent the bulk of it, probably up to maybe in my late 40s, having a great deal of anxiety, worrying about what other people were thinking of me. And usually it's centered around lack of respect. Even things like strangers in traffic cutting me off, that was for me a lack of respect. And I wanted to zoom around them and slam on the brakes and teach them a lesson. And I think that was a hot button that had to do with a narrative that I wasn't good enough and that people weren't recognizing that. And the reality was I believed in myself. I believed that I wasn't good enough and that other people in the world were reaffirming it. And so that anxiety that anxiety sort of became a self-perpetuating effect. Then what changed is I started to realize that I was spending a lot of time thinking about what other people were doing, and that my juice inside was not my juice. It was really something that I was creating out of thin air, and it was like dust and dirt and hate and disrespect of my own coming out of my orange. And then I started to realize slowly that most people are so busy with their own lives. You know, they're paying the bills, they're overscheduled, blah, blah, blah. They don't really have the time to be judging me. And that took a little while. That was like a transition period for me, but that really helped me, that realization. And then I began to realize that when other people were judging me, I didn't really care. I mean, it's okay. Just like I used to judge them, you know, now they're returning the favor, but that's on them, just like it was on me to be at that low level of operating. So when we're judging, you know, it doesn't serve. It's not creating that orange juice of love or respect or the feeling of inner peace that we're all craving. And besides, other people's opinion of me is none of my business. It really isn't. You know, I can't do anything to change it, and I'm not going to do anything to perform like a trained monkey to make sure you like me. So I just live my life, and I find happiness in the moment, rather than spending my present moments worrying about what other people think. Now, this is a long-winded way of saying that a lot of the orange juice that we should be getting out of life sometimes doesn't come out as orange juice. It comes out as dirt and dust and grime. And that's because we're in this process of worrying about what other people think and having these triggers that make us think that there's a reality that's actually very different. The reality that we're perceiving that's actually not correct, and that we're reacting to things that are wrong and that are just misunderstood. So my point, I guess, is that I think that a lot of what we need to do is to have self-examination that allows us to determine what our triggers are, and to see, just keep an eye on them, and then to see what we can do to practice eliminating them, practice sending out love, as you said, sending out respect, regardless of what comes back, because we all want payoffs. You know, oh, I showed you love, but you didn't give it back, so the hell with you. Well, you're still in the sewer when you're at that level.
I totally agree, Rick. And this applies for, you know, the squeezing applies to people and situations, right? It's like you said, it's judging them, interpreting them in a certain way. And even if you happen to be right about it, well, that's one way to do it. is to not give out love in the face of that. And those become the story of your life. And that's completely a choice. I made a choice, you know, 9+ years ago that would not be the story of my life. That would not be my life experience. And I got on this road, man. And I got to tell you, it hasn't been easy being the orange until it becomes easy being the orange. And now I'm at the sweet spot. It's easy being the orange.
Yeah, I get you. I hear you. That's exactly right. That's
Yeah.
exactly right. It's like a tipping point, right? You practice, you practice, you practice, you practice. You don't believe it some days, you believe it other days, and then you start to really believe it, and the practice becomes easier and easier, even though you still have to practice. And then finally, you're on a different kind of automatic pilot.
Absolutely. Rick, I love you. Thank you so much.
I love you, Keith. Thanks for the topic too.
Oh, thank you.